I know you've been losing a lot of money trading every single month, but this one trick is going to cut out 80% of your losses and you're going to understand where the market wants to go to next. So make sure you stick through this video and understand how to use this within your own strategy, or I'm going to give you the one simple strategy that has made traders thousands of dollars every single month. So let's get right into it. So the one thing that we're going to be looking at today is market structure, understanding where the market is sitting right now, understanding where the market wants to go to next. When you can use this and put it in your strategy, or use the simple strategy I'm going to show you today, you're going to be able to make thousands like my own students have. So we're going to jump right into it, as it's actually fairly simple to understand. So market structure is made up of two main components. You have the complex pullback and you have the main push. The main push is the push that the market's making in the direction of where price wants to go. So maybe with the trend, the complex pullback is that retracement that's doing against the trend to maybe fill an imbalance, come to a zone, take some more liquidity before pushing in the right direction. So the main two things that I want you to remember is your main push. So you have that main push and complex pullback. That's the main two things I want you guys to understand within this video. And understanding these two things will absolutely change your trading, because you'll actually understand where the market wants to go to next. So let's have a look at this kind of chart right here. So clearly we are heading bearish. We're breaking to the downside, heading further and further down. So we can see that we're in a bearish market. If we're in a bearish market, what would we consider our main push? Clearly what's going with the trend. So these big moves to the downside that tend to be a lot faster than the complex pullbacks, have a lot more volume and size, and tend to be going with the trend are our main pushes. So this would be a main push right now. I can even maybe highlight that for you. So let me highlight it real quick. So this would be our main push right now. Another main push would be this right here, or you can even mark it as this whole move right here. Again, from this whole move right here. And then you have one more move right here. So clearly we can see that we're having main pushes to the downside, and these would be our main pushes. Then what would be our complex pullback? Our complex pullback is always the retracement that's going against the general kind of trend in the market. So let's say in this case that we're bearish, it's always going to be this right here. Clearly we are going against the trend as we're heading further down. We're going bearish, sorry. We're heading further down, and as you can see, again, one more time, heading bearish and heading bearish. This would be your complex pullback, your retracement to maybe mitigate a zone, fill maybe an imbalance, and then head further down. So knowing that, how can we use this and implement this into our strategy? So the one way that I've seen price move a lot of the time is that price likes to come back to extreme and decisional supply and demand zones. And you might be thinking, what's a supply and demand zone? Whatever. I'm going to be explaining exactly how to do it. So now we can identify what's a main push and what's a complex pullback. Now we can use this to find our extreme and decisional supply zones. The extreme supply zone is the origination point of the main push. And then you have the decisional supply zone, which is the supply zone or demand zone. In this case, we're going to be using supply zones. It's the supply zone before the break of structure. So sometimes in lower time frames, or maybe like the 1 hour, 4 hour, instead of looking at the daily, you can see that sometimes there's a little high built just before maybe you induce or break to the downside. So in this case, I'm going to be showing you. So first one is that extreme supply zone. This is the origination point of the extreme supply zone. So that means that this would be that point. This is our main push. Then we have that complex pullback coming into it and reacting. Now, this is the point that we need to break to call this a break of structure. So if we break this low, that means we're making a new main push, and then we can be expecting a retracement. But we can clearly see that, okay, we have found this extreme supply zone right here, which is the origination point of the next main push. But then we can see another high that was created just before the break of structure, which now we can call this our decisional zone. So you have two types of zones that the market likes to come into, which is your extreme and your decisional. So in this sense, we can see that this is now our new main push, and we've marked out our decisional and extreme zone. So when price comes and taps into one of these zones, it will most likely have the complex pullback, mitigate one of these zones, and then start retracing back to the downside, making that next main push. Now we've made that next main push. We've just broken structure to the downside. And what can we see? The zone that started the main push is right here. So we've made another extreme zone, and the zone that was formed just before the break of structure is right here, which is our decisional. So price likes to normally come into there, mitigate it, and then push further down. So let's jump into the actual market to show you what this will look like. So now we're on the market and we're going to start marking out our main pushes and complex pullbacks. Right now we're sitting on the daily time frame, so let's mark out our main push. So like I said, I want to focus on this kind of area right here, similar to the chart that we just were looking at. We're clearly heading bearish, we're heading to the downside. So marking our zones and marking our main pushes and complex pullbacks will be fairly easy. So the first thing that I'm seeing is that we have this kind of start to that first main push to the downside. We have a push like this. So we have that first main push to the downside. So after we've had that main push to the downside, we're starting to maybe have a little bit of a complex pullback into an area, then have another main push. Then we're having a complex pullback to then have another main push, complex pullback to then now make the most recent main push, potentially to break this low. So knowing that we've made this now, what is some areas that we can mark out as a zone? So seeing areas that we can mark out as a zone is fairly easy. Let's focus on the first kind of main push right now, which this is this main push right here. So we have a push all the way to the downside and it's broken this low. So that clearly shows that we're heading to the downside now. So knowing that this is our main push, what is some areas that we can mark out as a zone? The first zone I'm seeing is this area right here, which I'll mark out as a supply with the red box. So this is our extreme zone right here. And then we also have our decisional zone right here. I can even mark this as a decisional so you guys can see it much better, and I'll mark this as the extreme. So we have our extreme zone, the origination point of the main push, and then we have the decisional, which is the break of structure, which is the zone just before the break of structure. So we have two areas that price could come into. At the moment, what price ended up doing is coming down, retracing just before the decisional and started pushing back down. That is completely fine. So now we're starting to push back down. That means we have another main push happening. So we can delete these and we can look for that next main push. That next main push was from this area up here, pushing to the downside like this. So we know that this is our next main push, which are some zones within this main push that we can start focusing on. The first one that I'm seeing is this kind of area right here for our extreme zone. So we have our extreme supply zone at the moment. What I'm seeing is that we broke structure to the downside right here. We can mark that as our B or S. Delete the last one just so we move further down to price action. So we have our break of structure right here. As you can see, we don't have another zone right before the break of structure, which is completely fine. Sometimes you will just have your extreme zone, and sometimes you can have an extreme and a decisional zone. In this case, we had an extreme zone. What prices ended up doing is pushing further down, then coming right into our zone and clearly pushing back further down. Now you're starting to see this is how the market kind of moves. So we can now use this in our advantage to put this within our strategy, or just overall understanding where the next point of the market is going to be that price will want to reverse from. So now I'm going to show you one of the most recent ones that you could have potentially actually traded to then potentially hit maybe some high RR trades, anything maybe from a 1 to 5 all the way up to 1 to 10, 1 to 20, depending on how you're going to trade it. So the last kind of main push that I'm seeing at the moment is this main push right here. So we're marking out that next main push, which is this right here. And as you can see, our break of structure point was right here. So we broke structure at this low right here. So what will be our two zones? The first zone that I'm seeing is this candle right here, which would be our extreme area right here. And we can mark that as like the extreme so you guys will know. And the second one I'm seeing is this candle right here, which is our decisional area. Let me mark that as a decisional area. So we have this decisional area because this is the zone just before the break of structure. What price ended up doing is tapping into the decisional area and now reacting to the downside. As you can see on the daily, we're having a lot of momentum to the downside, bearish momentum, potentially pushing for this low right here. So that's kind of going to be our next target. Knowing this, you could have waited for this on the daily time frame, 1 hour time frame, 4 hour time frame, as you can use this on any single time frame. Waited for the decisional to get tapped into, waited for that extreme to get tapped into, give you some lower time frame confirmations within this. Say maybe you can jump on the 1 hour and you can see, okay, we've tapped in. Maybe in my case, I would have probably used something like two-leg protocol. Maybe I would have used an RIFC or something like that and entered within here. In this sake, you could probably say, okay, we want a break of structure to this to the downside, and then potentially we'll enter for some sales. You could have maybe waited for a break of structure to the downside, covered the highs right here, covered the highs, and then looked for maybe a nice little 1 to 3, 1 to 2, and caught your little 1 to 2. That would have been such an easy trade for you, barely using any confluences, using the most simple strategy, and you would have probably backed around $2,000. But you can use this now on the lower time frame. So let's say we're on the 1 hour right now. We can use the same type of strategy on the 1 hour. So if we zoom in now and start looking on the 1 hour, we can start looking what is the main pushes and what is the complex pullbacks. Let's do this on a bullish side because we just did bearish twice. So I'm going to show you what it will look like on the bullish side. So we'll start from here. As you can see, we're having a push to the upside right here. Price starts having a complex pullback to the downside and then forming that next kind of push to the upside like this, and then having a complex pullback again to then have another push to the upside, complex pullback, push to the upside, complex pullback. So this is what it will look like. It can get a little bit more complicated on the lower time frame, but sometimes you can even jump. Let's say I'm looking at the 1 hour. If you jump on the 4 hour, this will look a lot cleaner. As you can see, now you can see the main push is much better. You can see these slower complex pullbacks much better. Main push again, slow complex pullback. Then you have that next main push. So you can see these things a lot better. So knowing that, how can we trade this? So the first thing I'm seeing at the moment is that first main push. So we have that main push to the upside. We can mark out some sort of decisional or extreme demand zone. At the moment, I'm seeing this first extreme demand zone, and I'm not seeing that it created any decisional. So we marked out our extreme, price tapped into it. You could have waited now on the lower time frame for some confirmation, entered your trade, covered the lows, and headed for the highs. And you could have caught a 1 to 8 easily just from this simple strategy. But you can implement this into your own strategy, wait for price to come into your extreme level or decision level in the right correct time, and then use your own confluences to maybe catch a 1 to 10, 1 to 20 higher RR trades. You can even use this for 1 to 2, 1 to 3. It's just understanding where price is going to reverse from and where price is going to head to next. So in this sense, we see that price will reverse from here. So this is our reversing point right here. And the next point it wants to come up to is at least this high to make a break of structure. So we can target these highs and then expect price to reverse from here. So that is something you can implement into your strategy straight away to cut down the losses within your strategy. This is the easiest way to know where you're in the market. So let's do this one more time. So we've had this point of interest that price is tapped into and reversed from. So this would be kind of your main next push. So we've had that main push. Now we can see, okay, we have some sort of decisional zone right here. It's the zone right before the break of structure. So you mark that as your decisional zone. Price tapped again right into it, giving you a reaction to then enter, cover the lows, and you could have easily caught a 1 to 4. It's very simple. Of course, you can add your own strategy to this. You can add your own confluences, but this is the easiest way that you're going to read the market. If you're sitting, let's say if you're sitting right here within the market, you've just tapped into the decisional, you know that the next point where price most likely will go if it reacts from decisional is this high right here. So we can mark that out as some money. If you're right here, there's no reason to be selling off. If you start selling off from right here, you're catching the bottom of the bottom. So most likely, price will start reversing from here. As we can see, this is clearly heading in a bullish market. So there's no reason for you to start selling off from this moment. So understanding this will save you those stupid losses. You can even do this on the 1 hour. You can do this on 30 minute, 15 minute, whatever time frame you want to jump onto. You can do this and understand that, okay, I'm sitting within that main push. I'm sitting within that complex pullback. Where should I look to sell or buy from next, or where will my TP target list be? So maybe you want to put your TP at that next kind of break of structure before price maybe reverses again. So This is potentially something that you can use within your own strategy. And when you implement this, you will cut out so many losses and you won't be as confused when you're looking at the market. So make sure you try this. And also I have an exact strategy using this market structure plus supply and demand zones plus liquidity for absolutely free in my free ebook. So join my Discord below and then go in the free section, download the ebook, and you can ask any questions on the Discord server and I'll get back right away to you. And you can start trading exactly how my students are for completely free. So make sure you go check that down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure you leave any questions down below. So I'll see you next time.